Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, oh, Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh, my goodness.
Hyperbole. There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
Next shot, bang.
We're going three wide off the top today. It's great to see everybody. Ken Flo, is that a mustache?
A little bit. I don't know how it got there. I know.
I didn't intend to lead the show with your facial hair. We're going to have more on that later.
Yeah.
We have a very special guest off the top of the show. But I have not showered since Sydney, Australia. I got in my front door 4 minutes ago because the consensus greatest bantamweight of all time was gracious enough to move back his window 15 minutes because it took me forever to get home from the airport. Thank you to everybody for indulging us. It is episode 537 of the ANIKFLORIANPODCAST. We are live. It is Monday, February 10th, 2025. Got a lot to get to today, especially on UFC 312. But as you see, and easy on the eyes is he. Joining us off the top of the show is the former two-time UFC bantamweight champion, consensus greatest bantamweight of all time, Dominick Cruz. Where are you? Are you in Mexico City?
Mexico City, still here. And thanks for showing the people how hard it is to do a podcast. Like, how many in a row have you done? You spoke about this recently now.
Yeah, I love how you have said to us in the past, like, what do you guys talk about for 537 fucking episodes, right?
Wow, that's
so bro, but April 9th, right? We sit here February 10th, April 9th, 2025 is our 10-year anniversary of the Anik and Florian podcast. And it's a nice segue to the Cruise With Me podcast featuring Dominick Cruz, which is coming soon.
Yes, that will be coming soon. And, I try not to mix up. There's so many things you can get caught up in when you're fighting because you get a lot of opportunities brought to the doorstep. And I know Kenny knows this because he's fought at the highest level. You got to sort out your priorities when you're competing against these guys. So I haven't really had the time to do that stuff. But now, without needing to train or else I get my, face beat in, it changes priorities a lot. It's totally different.
All right, well, a lot that we want to get into with you, and I know Kenny has some questions as well. And yeah, we'll pump your coming soon podcast on the back end to be sure. I'm kind of offended that you named the fucking show without consulting me. And I know we're live, but you and I have been talking for years about you doing a podcast with or without me. I mean, I got Ken Flo, but you already named the fucking show without consulting me?
Man, I figured it had whenever somebody goes on a cruise, everybody wants to be there because it's chill, it's cruising. So cruising it seemed pretty normal. It seemed like a win-win no matter what you did because it doesn't need to get too stressful. We're just cruising.
All right. Well, if you don't know the lead story other than UFC 312 over the past week, after a second shoulder dislocation in the last 8 or so months, this one pretty intensive and severe. Dominick Cruz is not only out of his retirement fight against Rob Font 12 days from now, February 22nd, but this is going to mean the end of your career. And you've given so much of your mind and your body to the sport, and thankfully we will all continue to benefit from your mind. But I guess if you could just take us back to the day it happened and, those ensuing 12 hours, what they were like for you mentally, physically. I know you're in a lot of pain.
Yeah, well, it was like I had one dislocation about 8 weeks prior to this recent one that I posted. And that one kind of like set the stage that, okay, I'm on a different kind of timeline than just age, which I didn't really add to the equation. It was more just like, I feel good. I'm still fast, all these things, right? So then your shoulder falls out and then you're like, okay, I rehabbed it for 6 weeks straight. And then I went and sparred with Jeremy Stevens and like a few other pro boxers just to see where it was really at after the rehab I had done. And I did really well. I felt really good. Nothing messed with me at all. So after that, I booked the fight. And then they offered me Rob Font. So that's why I was like, oh, I should just take it. I'm not going to get in better shape. I've been training really hard. I feel amazing still now. I felt amazing before the second dislocation. And then, that's why I took the fight. So sorry, Rob Font as well. I respect the guy. He's done a lot in the sport himself and done a lot of big things. So nobody wants to pull out as a pro fighter because it sets somebody else off too. It sets the fans off. It sets the fighter off. It's more than just me when you pull out, and that's why I didn't want to do it. But I knew I was on borrowed time, to put it quickly. I was on borrowed time after the first dislocation. So I was like, as long as I get through this camp and just stay semi-safe, more drilling than a lot of live wrestling, just kind of switch up the training just a little, not completely, then I should be fine. Well, the day I needed to do a little bit of live is when it hurt. You got to do some of it, you know. So I was doing some groundwork, and it was a basic thing I've done a million times. You know, you're on your back from half guard, and you get up on your elbow, and then you reach to a single, and you use your elbow to get up. And when you put post on the ground like that with somebody on top of your head, and I just pretty much it just shot out the back the second I put my elbow down and went to pull in that single leg. And the difference with this one from the first one was the first one was only out for like maybe 3 minutes. It was a nice quick slide back in. Shout out to Tim Roberts and Lauda and everybody at the UFC PI here in Mexico City. They were able to pull my shoulder right into place pretty quick. That was excruciating pain, but it was so quick. Whereas the second one, they went to pull it in and it did not go back. It just stayed where it was at. And all the muscles locked it down on top of a nerve. And for about an hour and a half, from driving to traffic to the hospital, to getting to the hospital, and then needing to get an x-ray because you can't, it's not like the movies where you just slide a shoulder back in every time. It doesn't always work that way. So the second time it didn't work that way. When they went to slide it in, it was sitting very particularly. So they have to do an x-ray to see how to pull it back in, what direction to yank your arm when they reset it. Because if you pinch certain nerves, then it can shut the whole arm off, and it's just really damaging. So I'm in the hospital for an hour, 15 minutes. My arm starts turning blue. And when I see my fingers turning blue and just things being weird and the pain was excruciating, it just gave a different perspective for me. You know, I always say I deserve this kind of pain. And the reason is because that's the only way I learn. So this was enough pain to teach me something and get me to kind of like say, okay, it was just different. It was different. I've broken my arm on people's heads in practice. Go the next day. Don't go to the hospital because I want to make sure it's broken and not waste the time and the money. So, and I've been fine with that. You know, just drink a little bit of alcohol and you're good until the next day. But this one, it was a 20 on a scale of 1 to 10. So it just changed my perspective of where the shoulder's at, because once you learn, you know, I'd already had tendon damage that had torn, and that's why the shoulder starts coming out, because the tendons are no longer connected. So there's separation, and then that thing can just fly out. So if it can happen twice within, 6 to 8 months, that's when the shoulder just stops working on you after a while, if you start learning about the anatomy of the shoulder, which I have at this point. And so yeah, it's a testing game now, right, Kenny? It's like, how much is my shoulder worth? How much is being able to do this worth? That's full range of motion, right? It's still painful. Right. I have a lot of rehab to do, but is that worth more than what I'm getting paid for this last fight? Definitely. Now, if they offer me, a couple mil or something like that, I don't know. I might have showed up and gone with a 50% arm and maybe done that. But for them, you got to figure out what your arm's worth.
Yeah. Dom, you've been around the sport for a very long time, legendary career, obviously, and certainly have experienced lows before. What was your mindset after you got injured? Was it something similar to maybe the first ACL tear or the second one, or was it kind of one of those things like, hey, this was going to be my last fight, it's time to go? What was your mindset like?
Well, actually, it was really similar to my first title loss. Like a sort of, I knew I went into that fight like with some compromised situations with my body, and the way that I performed gave me peace with myself. I was able to forgive myself really quickly, and I was able to, be just actually like give myself a pat on the back with how I did, even for a 5-round title fight, even though I lost the belt. That's why I could show up the way I did, because I knew that the circumstances that I was in and how I showed up, I was proud of myself. I'm surprised I even did as well as I did, to be honest. So this is similar. How long I lasted from the first dislocation and then booking the fight, and then the way that I trained with these guys out in Mexico City, and how much I learned with them over this past year, and how much I learned about myself and my body, and just giving everything I have. Like I didn't pull one stop, not once. I was in shape. My diet was right. Everything was good. So when this happened to me, it was kind of like mixed with the pain as a reflection point. It wasn't. I'm not very hard on myself right now. I've done everything I could do, like everything. So it just sucks. I mean, your heart breaks, right? Because your life goes from it's like a head spin. Your life complete contrast separation, like goes from all these nerves and all this, be ready and being in shape, and just now that's just gone. Like it doesn't really matter if you're in shape or not, and that's a weird thought.
Yeah, I bet, right? To think about, man, it's like if I'm not in shape, it's largely inconsequential. I need to be able to talk on a microphone, but I don't need to be able to go kill a man. Dominick Cruz with us live here on the Anik and Florian podcast. There's so many things that I want to get into with you. The nice things that I'm going to say about you are probably going to come at the back end of the show, right? When I harken back to you coming back for the Takeya Mizugaki win, right? Or, excuse me, winning the title for a second time, or becoming a two-time champion against TJ Dillashaw in Boston. We're going to celebrate you, but because we have you, I'm not going to talk too much. So in terms of this next phase of your life, right? Certainly there are some things that you can lean into, right? You can not necessarily be in the shape of your life 360 days a year, right? But what exactly are you looking at? It seems like you couldn't even, finish sort of announcing your retirement. You already have a podcast, right? So it seems like you're already spinning it forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you can do, right? Is just keep. I try to, anything I do, which kind of annoys people probably, but I try to do it with the same way I approached fighting, which is just the championship level of doing it. There's only one way to do it for me, and it's like if I was fighting for a championship. So if I'm going to do a podcast, I'm going to do it that way. If I'm going to show up and analyze fights for 25 fighters, I'm going to do it with the championship tenacity. I'm going to make sure I know everybody's style and how they clash together. I'm going to know all of it. If you hire me for a seminar and I'm doing a speaking, I'm going to come and approach that, even though it's not fighting. I'm going to approach it with the same focus as I do a championship fight. So the wheel is already made. That's simple for me. Just use the wheel and shift it and move it around and see where I can have my clear intention work the best for me in my life, and be grateful. Those things are hard to beat.
So Kenny Florian and Dominick Cruz, if they worked and competed in a different sport, potentially could make tens upon tens of millions of dollars as coaches after they competed, right? And I bring this up in the context of RJ Clifford, our colleague, whom you know, Dominick Cruz, obviously. He said to me, I wish I could pay Dominick Cruz to go into coaching, because if there was enough money there, like imagine, Kenny, if you were being paid $2 million a year to be the coach of, team Southeast United States in the UFC, right? It'd be the most incredible life, right? I know you guys would have an appetite for it, but there isn't necessarily the cash, and you're away from the family and everything else. Dom, is coaching something that you're going to do only selectively with a few fighters and not something that's going to consume a lot of your time?
I'm going to definitely stay open to possibility, right? Like this is a brand new situation for me in my life. So it's just, I love to train. And that's part of the reason why I also am not doing this fight, because I still have the option that when I rehab this, I think I'll be able to maybe, lightly grapple, go through movements, maybe hit pads. I don't know. I'm going to see what I just got an MRI and a CT scan today, so I'll know the extent of the true damage in my shoulder in about a week. But yeah, I want to be able to do things. I want to be able to coach. I want to be able to roll around with fighters, this new age fighters. And I've been doing that out here in Mexico City. It really bridged me really well, being out here with Eric Del Fierro, who's running this squad out here. I mean, there's 25 South American fighters, and they're trying to get as many Mexican fighters as they can. And training with them over the past year, I've learned so much with the young guys of what just the hunger in their eyes and how bad they want it, and I could see my young self in them, and it's inspiring for me. It keeps me. I realized being here this last year, it keeps me, like, seeing guys like that keeps me alive.
Yeah.
It just keeps me alive. So I'll be part of that, no question.
So if you already had your own podcast, which you fucking don't, I can remind people, we've had one for 10 years, which is neither here nor there. But if you had your own podcast, Dom, I think you would probably lead the show this week, Cruise with Me, by thanking your contemporaries, right? By thanking your fellow fighters who have literally come out in droves to offer up their support for your career. And even if you don't subscribe to the theory as I do, that the most basic human needs to feel appreciated, not that you need to care what other people think all the time, but my gosh, I know you care what your fellow fighters think. And one after the other, man, they've just been celebrating you and your career. That's got to feel some kind of good.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I know it might come off sometimes like I don't need anything from anybody, but that's definitely not true. I'm a human like anybody else. I love to be, appreciated. It's just not. It's something I'm working on, is to receive it, right? Like that takes something too, and it takes practice. And it's been overwhelming, the appreciation and the love. And I think what shocked me the most is the words. Like, I understand words really well when people write them down, obviously, and I read them, and you take the time to read the impact that, me taking ass whippings has done to people. It's shocking. You wouldn't think of it that way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
this is crazy. Like,
Dom,
getting my ass beat, right?
Well, Dom, I'll say this. I'd like to say this. I think that you can learn from everybody, right? There's always something you can learn from everybody, but there's very few people in the sport that I enjoy talking mixed martial arts to, that not only that I can learn from, but that I can learn from in a variety of ways, right? It's like everyone has a little something, but when you talk to Dominick Cruz, you can learn a lot about a lot of different areas, and that's what I appreciate about you. And Dom, I'll say this: you've always been very real. You've always been very honest. You've carried yourself like a professional through and through. And the other thing, more than anything else, is there's people that can be champions, but there's very few people that can change the way people approach the sport. And Dom, you changed the way that people approach the sport. You brought a style and a creativity and an artistry that very few people bring. And when you do that, you advance the sport. And that's something you should be extremely proud of, even maybe above the world titles that you've gained, man. So thank you for bringing that, changing the game, and doing that all for us.
But, coming from a guy like you who's done what you've done, you were in The Ultimate Fighter, the way that you choke people, you take the back, your specialties, elbows, taking the back, the things that I've watched you do in the career, it means a lot coming from a guy like you, because you know what it really is. And so thank you, first of all. And to me, that's what you just explained, Kenny, is my version of what I believe a champion, the highest level champion is. It's to raise the watering line, set the watering line, and then make it so that somebody can top it again. That's what this thing's about. Like, not just okay, I'm the watering line, nobody's better than me. That's not what this is about. It's about how good can that be, and then how much better can people keep getting from that place. To me, that's the goal of it. That's what a champion can be, and that means inside the octagon, outside the octagon, everything that person touches, not just here and there. They're good in the octagon, but when you get them out in life, everything falls apart. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what it is to me. That's not championship mentality to me. It's like, keep your ducks in a row everywhere you're at, the best you can. Nobody's perfect, but the best you can. That's championship stuff, and that's what I hear you saying. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely. Congratulations on an amazing career.
Thankfully, UFC 312 wasn't the card of the year, Dom. So we're going to have a lot of time over the next hour with Ray Longo and everybody else to celebrate you and your career. But I think you know where you stand with me. I consider you one of my absolute best friends, and I'm not sure I would still be doing this if it were not for your presence in my life. And that says nothing of your footwork and your style and your world championships and everything else. You can follow his new podcast, Cruise with Me, on Instagram. The show does not exist as yet, but Dom's going to be omnipresent on this show over the next several months as he gets his new life in order. But we love you, buddy. You always have a platform here, and just congratulations on a Hall of Fame career that soon will be acknowledged as such, my friend.
And thanks for making the time, Anik. I know you just got off the plane. I can smell you from here. So
Ha!
thank you. Go get a shower. Go get that done.
Oh, thank you, buddy. Much love, man. We'll have more time soon. Thank you for breaking off a few minutes.
Kenny, don't do anything with that mustache. And I'll talk to you guys.
I know. See you, buddy.
Right. Later, guys. Thank you.
There he is. The now retired former two-time UFC bantamweight champion Dominick Cruz, and my gosh, if Ken Flo doesn't look like a cold-blooded assassin today. I don't know where you are.
Oh, I said the same thing. I swear to God. I'm sorry.
My goodness. Right now he's smiling, but when he doesn't, my goodness. And you do look particularly handsome. Ray Longo is with us.
Let me tell you some guys. I just want to say one thing. I hope when I retire, you blow me as bad as you blew Dominick Cruz. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Ray, you got company today.
We blow you every day, every time you're on the podcast.
Hey, say hi to Chelsea. Chelsea, say hi.
Hi, Chelsea.
Ray finally got a secretary.
Yeah.
It's about time.
So
she'll be at your seminar. She's been talking about it for the last 2 weeks, guys.
Let's go. Let's go.
Ray, I don't know if it's the lighting, but you look. Is Chelsea going to be with us in the shot the whole segment? What are we doing? I mean, I love Chelsea. She can be. No, she can stay there. She can stay there. I need to know up front if Chelsea's going to be a part of our.
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
There we go.
John just kicked her out. I mean, unbelievable.
He just threw the girl out.
Jeez.
He threw out the beautiful
He's
Chelsea.
cranky. He just got off a plane. I get it.
That's Chelsea Sapphire. That's a dancing name.
Chelsea fucking Sapphire. I mean, did I just get off a metal tube from Sydney? I don't know what the fuck's going on right now. Are we live?
How was Sydney?
Sydney was great. I feel like it's my favorite non-U.S. city, to be sure. You look so great at this time of day. I'm not blowing smoke, but you got color.
I got my workout in. I'm ready to
Why
go.
do you shave? I mean, you look so much better with a little scruff on your face than you do.
My wife loves that grub.
I'm telling you, the scruff looks great.
Johnson look.
The scruff looks great. It looks like Chelsea's back in the shot. I'm glad that you take this podcast seriously, 10 years in. I'm glad, and I'm the bad guy again, right? You fucking stupid ass minute man, Ray.
No, I tell you, Chelsea's she's like Paulie and Rocky. Hey, I think the meat guy's in the picture.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I'm at the Draftkings network, I'm thinking, what exactly am I paying for? Anakin Florian podcast presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. So, Ray, I do think the scruff looks great. That's enough on that. Ken Flo looking like a cold-blooded assassinator with his mustache. Where are you, Kenny? Are you home?
I am home. Man. We had a little light issue. We were getting a lot of reflection of the light for some reason. So I had to turn them down. I put the lamp in the background. It does look a little extra creepy, I got to say. And then the mustache. And there's a lot of creepiness going on over here. But same room, just different look.
You armed? Are you armed right now?
Potentially at the moment. We'll see. No.
Always
within arm's length.
He's always armed.
Yeah. Right. So, Ray,
yes,
it's great to see you. It's always a treat for us to have whatever amount of time with you. I'm apologizing to you for being a few minutes late. I literally came back from the airport, walked in the door, put the hands on. So I apologize. Do you accept the apology or no? It doesn't sound like you.
Of course I do.
Okay. All right. I'm not apologizing to Chelsea, incidentally, because I don't know that I did anything wrong. Just trying to preserve the sanctity of the show. So, lot to get into, my friend, with you. I think I would like to start with your number 1 overall draft pick, Kevin Lee, and that sparring video, bro. Kenny, I don't know if you've ingested this. I assume at this point any mixed martial arts fan has. If you don't know, somehow, some way at Killcliff FC, some sparring footage got out. And Kevin Lee, I don't know if he was throwing a jumping or a flying knee, but he got knocked out cold with a right hand, Raymond. And I know it's not really your number 1 pick, but what do you have for us on video like that getting out and just that type of thing happening in sparring? How regular is that?
Oh, I don't think it's regular, but it 100% happens. I don't know what kind of sparring they were doing over there. It didn't look extreme. For what I looked at, looked like he just did tried to do a flying knee that really wasn't going to even land. And I think the guy caught him with a check hook, that right hook. But shit happens, man. It's not a good sign. And, luckily the league doesn't start for 2 months. So Kenny,
I didn't feel like there was anything malicious with the right hand. It was just sort of pinpoint placement. And I agree with Ray. I felt like maybe I'm wrong. All right, sorry. Well, maybe
no.
I agree with Ray on the flying knee. That was just sort of cosmetic, right?
I would have had to have been there and see if they were going berserk. I could, like, again, I could be wrong from what I'm looking at. It just, I've seen, shit happens. It's not, it's,
so when I was going to say, so when I see that kind of sparring, and Ray's absolutely correct. It's like, you kind of have to see the energy that's going back and forth. And it's hard to tell with that flying knee while, unadvised in sparring, especially, guys are getting ready for fights. You don't want to throw a whole lot of those unless you're really controlled. It could have been that, Lee was throwing bombs at him just prior to that. And then he was kind of matching the intensity of it. However, if that was thrown like that and that wasn't the case on the part of Kevin, I'd go, yo, let's chill out a little bit, because that had some stank on it, Ray.
Yeah, Kenny, that's what it looked like to me. Like one guy, and again, I didn't look at it a lot. I quickly looked at it, but it looked like Kevin Lee was just kind of chilling out, and this guy just unleashed a right hook on his, it just, whatever. I don't know. But I would have had to seen the whole thing. Were they going at it? Then it's a different story. But it looks like Kevin Lee just got caught while he was playing around, which kind of really sucks, because that is worse than two guys going at it to me. When one guy's trying to play around, the other guy takes like a cheap shot. That to me, that's bullshit. You know what I mean?
So I believe it was Kai Kara-France who suffered a concussion in training, if I'm not mistaken, in advance of the Manel Kopp fight, and wisely pulled out. I don't know if he's going to fight Pantoja for the title, right? But Kenny and Ray, I'm not trying to put you guys on the spot, but Ray just said, well, the thing doesn't start for 2 months. That's the good thing. And I'm thinking, should there be some brain preservation here? The dude got knocked out cold, so he's not going to be sparring anytime soon, or is he?
He's got to look. It depends on if you want to play it safe and take care of your health. You have to do that. But John, most of the damage happens when you don't get knocked out, and you just stay there for another 20 minutes. That was always the rap on boxing.
Sure.
You get beat up, you get a minute to rest, and then you get beat up again, and it's just you keep going out and out and out, and it doesn't matter if they're 8-ounce gloves as opposed to something else. But it's a sport that it's like jumping out of an airplane, doing skydiving. You have to know what the ramifications are. And then if you choose to do it, well, that's all you could do is educate people on everything. And if they choose to do it, there's nothing you can do about it. Everybody knows that you get lung cancer from smoking. I can't believe people still smoke, but that's a known fact. It's not good for you, and yet people do it. But I could tell you there were a couple of fights Saturday night that guys are going to be in worse shape than Kevin Lee. Like even like that Cody Steele fight where they were going back and forth.
Oh my
gosh. Some huge shots, you know what I mean? And sometimes you're your own worst enemy when you could take it, because you're taking an extra 15 punches. Do you
guys remember TJ Grant from back in the day, the Canadian mixed martial arts fighter? He had a title shot, was supposed to fight, got concussed 100%. In training, and never was the same. He never was able to come back and fight because of that concussion. So I mean, these things can happen, man. It's a crazy sport, and people forget the training that happens before you get out.
That's where it is, Kenny, more than even the fights. But I'm just looking at some of those fights the other night. You're getting, look, this isn't a sport for the weak, man. There's going to be ramifications for everybody fighting later on in life. I think it's just the way it is,
Yeah.
And if you could get away with it with none, beautiful.
Right. Yeah.
But you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to ever hear a guy say, I didn't know you could get brain CTE from that. That would be hard. That's worse.
Yeah.
So everybody knows what it is. You have to take care of yourself. He should chill out. I know when people had concussions here, don't do any, you can't, don't even think. They don't even want you thinking.
Yeah.
Like you got to just really give your brain a break, man. And I hope he's around the right people that look after him a little bit, So.
Yeah. No, it's a scary thing. I've I've had bad luck in my life, right? As a non-fighter, I've been out cold twice on basketball courts, hospitalized.
Yeah, think about it, on basketball courts.
Yeah. So out cold. I mean, completely out.
And I'm going to educate you a little bit. the head really wasn't meant to get hit by anything.
Yes.
I know I didn't go to med school, but like as a kid, Kenny, like we were so stupid back in the day, we'd headbutt each other. We thought that was funny. We thought that was a blast.
They don't even let kids head a soccer ball now until they're a certain age.
Right.
It's like,
right.
Hey, Kenny, there's some horror stories from soccer.
Yeah.
Horror.
Yeah.
Worse than boxing.
People ask me, how many times you've been concussed in mixed martial arts? And I always tell them, in mixed martial arts, I'm not sure. I've never been officially concussed in mixed martial arts. I have been concussed in soccer, and I was like 12.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
so I mean, that's not good for a growing brain to be concussed. I came down, collided, heads with the kid as I was coming down off a header. But anyway.
Yeah. No. I saw something on a soccer player from England that it was gut wrenching. His wife was telling the story. You don't look at that as a big thing, but even a soccer ball bouncing off your head. Now imagine a fist or an elbow.
Yeah. Hey, I want to be respectful of your time. We got about 10 more minutes. We need to get into UFC 312 before we lose this entire fucking audience. Headlines brought to you by Cuervo. Now's a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. And still UFC middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis. Ray, I will start with you. I mean, the fuck is going on there? I guess I need to know, as the producer of this podcast, that if I'm getting Ray Longo in primetime, I'm getting fucking Chelsea and background noise and everything else. What did you make of the middleweight champion, though, dominant in defense against Sean Strickland?
We got to do what we have to do, man. I got to teach in 10 minutes. But wait, what was that? What did I think of the main event?
Yes.
Yeah. Du Plessis was able to make more adjustments than Strickland was able to make. Yeah. And, I think, I don't know. I mean, look, Nixick did the right thing. He jumped on him from round one. Like, I think Sean is so used to sparring that way that it's hard for him to break out of it when he needs to. He's just, it's different. Where the other guy, is willing to go into deep waters. He's awkward as shit, but he's effective. So I enjoyed the fight. It was nice. I thought it was started. I think it was kind of what we said. It's going to be the same thing. It was different, but Strickland didn't really make any adjustments. He still stayed behind the jab, and his defense was pretty good. But the other guy just doesn't stop. He is like a Marab.
Yeah. Yes.
Chelsea, get this guy out.
No, it's fine. It's fine, Ray. We're not picking it up. It's fine. I'm just having fun with you. It's fine.
That's all right.
You're right. The only comp I had, Kenny, for DDP was Marab. That's all I kept thinking. They're the only guys I can compare it to each other.
Yeah, no, he's got, because they don't look Marab's grappling looks good, but his striking's really coming around too. So, but it's the same thing. You can't deter these guys, and they get stronger as the fight goes on. That's the major takeaway, is that you got to be prepared for 5 rounds of a guy in your face, not knowing where those kicks are landing. I mean, he's just throwing. They spin elbows. He doesn't give a shit. He's got the balls to step in the pocket and do whatever he wants to do. And Strickland really, I think Nixick did a good job. You gotta get your cross going. You gotta work the box. You want to box him. You gotta box him, not just with the jab. He's got a great jab and he can do that, but he should use that to set up for everything else he does. And I think he's so used to it. Just looks like when I watch his sparring videos, he's doing the same thing. That's ingrained in him, and I think that could be a problem where he's not coming out of that. He does. It's not like he gets hurt. You know what I mean? You're not really wobbling. He did break his nose, but listen. And plus, I love Strickland as a fighter because, man, he's a real dude. He gives it up to you at the end. As crazy as he might be, I think he's one of those guys that he's a genuine article, that guy. And I love the way he gave it up to Dricus after the fight. He's not making excuses. He's not doing anything. He appreciates the fight, man. He really does. I could see those guys becoming good friends now. You know what I mean? So that's what it's about to me anyway. I love watching that.
Kenny, I'm dying to get your thoughts on this fight. It's hard not to sort of piggyback upon the last word that I hear. I agree with everything that was said about Sean Strickland, but let's not pretend that he has the championship hunger of Dricus du Plessis or Khamzat Chimaev or anybody else, because if he did, with total respect, then when your coach tells you repeatedly to throw the cross first and to move to your left, I mean, he's not executing any of those imperatives. He has been defiant at times in fight, but this was the least coachable he'd ever been.
Yeah, right. Let me just say one thing. That's the other problem is like when they are trying to coach him, Kenny, he's not even there. He wants to do what he wants to do. And he's like Eric's going, you got anything else? The guy's halfway across the octagon while the guy's talking.
Kenny, go ahead.
You got to sit a guy down. You got to make eye contact with him. You have to really get in his face. And, I'm sure they had a different plan going in there, but he looked like he reverted back to just jabbing and sticking and moving and throwing his front kicks. And
yeah, and I think that's where Dom's, those words were ringing in my ears throughout that fight. Iron mind, and he was referring to it as far as the guy who's not going to quit, who's going to keep coming forward, and a guy who's not going to get thrown off by things. And that really was a major factor in that fight. Strickland was not listening to his corner. He was not as disciplined as he needed to. He was not making the adjustments that I talked about in the last podcast. And all of those things put together was a huge problem, because he had a guy in Dricus du Plessis who came with a beautiful game plan, who kind of saw it as one continuous fight. The 6th round started, and boy, he got off to a great start. He was versatile. He was throwing a lot of different things. He was stance switching. And in order to beat Dricus du Plessis, you have to find a way around those physical assets. And yes, I love the analogy to Merab Dvalishvili, because those guys are so powerful with their physical characteristics that they bring into the cage, then you better hope and pray that you are head and shoulders above them on a technical level. Yeah. And not many people are going to be just that. And people forget, Dricus du Plessis had a very injured leg. He might have even had a broken foot heading into that first fight against Strickland. So just to make it 5 rounds against Strickland is impressive, but to win that first fight against Strickland is insane. And then to see him put it all together, he looked more technical. He looked more fluid. He looked like an improved fighter. That guy dominated for a reason.
Yeah. Hats off to him, because again, one of those guys from the beginning, I just didn't see it, but I'm a huge fan now. The last couple of fights, I'm a huge fan. And who doesn't want to see that Khamzat fight? You know what I mean? Or
I love it.
Even Nasruddin. And honestly, I think Nasruddin's the tougher fight, believe it or not. For the one reason that I think Khamzat's gas tank, I can't see him in a 4-round war. He looks like he's wilted in a couple of times in the past, cardio-wise, and this guy's getting stronger. And I don't know. But both fights, I'd love to see either one of those fights.
Gosh, we have so much to talk about. Khamzat as a stylist is like Tatiana Suarez, right? They trying to get that takedown early on. I actually felt like Tatiana Suarez could have been a little bit more patient. But yeah, so Ray, for Dricus du Plessis and Khamzat Chimaev, I said at the end of last year, I thought that was the most chaotic fight that you could make. I mean, maybe Nasruddin Imavov in terms of a 25-minute fighter and the size, I hear you, but DDP and Chimaev, Ray, that's as good as it gets.
That would be absolute chaos. I would love to see that fight.
All right, Ray, before we let you go, Nazim Sadikov is competing this weekend in Las Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. Is that accurate?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, of course it's accurate. I'm saying that somewhat tongue-in-cheek. So what do you have for us on Nas? Are we ready to go? It's a big fighting one of the Bonfim brothers, no?
Yeah, big fight. I think Nas is ready. Wait, what happened? He left? This is, I feel like Strickland.
No, I'm right here. I just took a shot at Cuervo.
Like yes, I tried to talk to you walking away from him. Kenny, you got anything for him? The guy's in the back. He's by the refrigerator.
I just took a shot at Cuervo, and let me clear my throat, right? You know the song. I'm trying to need something to clear my throat, Ray. I'm sorry, but please, as you were.
So Nas looks good. His head's in the right spot. He sent me some of his sparring. He looks good. I'll know more when I get down there Wednesday, but he certainly sounds really good.
All right, well, I really think you should keep the scruff. I think you look fantastic. You're on camera every week on the Anik and Florian podcast. You've never looked better. You got color. You look great.
I think he should grow the full beard. Go like full on Rocky 3. You'll look like Sylvester Stallone in Rocky 3 when he was in the mountains in Russia. Ray, let's go.
I got to get my hair transplant first. I got a big head of hair coming. I'm going to Sweden.
Turkey.
I'm getting a hair transplant.
Sweden, Turkey. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Sweden.
Yeah.
Turkey.
Well, we all remember when you grew out your hair during COVID, but I think the
That was
beard
crazy.
is here to stay. But thank you, brother. Sorry for being a few minutes late.
No, we're all good.
We'll catch up later in the week, but best to Chelsea and everybody else there at
wow.
Longo's MMA school in Garden City, New York.
Chelsea.
No, we're good. Thank you, though.
Sure. All right.
Yeah.
You want to
Thanks,
give
Ray.
your own little love? Minute Men. Minute Men. I like that song. I think I come up with a new song for the Minutemen.
Oh,
Got him. Get him out of here. Get him
I
out
could
of here.
actually get
All right,
behind.
anything else?
No, I mean, I think we're good.
I tell you that the Whaley fight was unbelievable. I thought that
Talk
was
to me.
I
I'll tell you. Hey,
tell you, I always liked it. I put it right at the. I mean, that was a great fight against a girl that could wrestle. She out wrestled that girl. She controlled that whole fight. Crazy. I didn't see that coming. I picked Tatiana to win that fight. But
yeah,
man, did that girl was well prepared for that fight. You know.
Yeah, we're going to spend a ton of time on Zhang Weili. But, Ray, isn't it interesting, right? Because after that performance, recency bias or otherwise, it has journalists like Aaron Bronstetter asking aloud, like, what exactly does Zhang Weili need to do to pass Amanda Nunes as the greatest women's MMA fighter of all time? Because, gosh, 115 pounds, Kenny, compared to 35 in totality is a deeper division. You know, I mean, what does someone need to do exactly? I don't know. But, Ray, to your point, this is as good of a women's mixed martial arts athlete, really, or male, that I think I've ever seen. So
yeah, she looks like and she's not a spring chicken. She looks like she's getting better. That was a really good fight for her. It really was a really good fight. I was super impressed with that fight.
Yeah, as were we. All right, buddy.
All right.
Thank you so much for the time. We'll talk to you next week.
Take it easy, guys. I'll see you.
See you, Ray.
Take care.
All right, good to have Ray Longo with us today. So much to get into on UFC 312, Ken Flo. I want to spend a few more minutes on the main event. Then I'm going to pay off some sponsors, and then we will get to Zhang Weili and everything else. But for Dricus du Plessis, right? It was the most informative fighter meeting since we've been doing them by far. I probably got to 5% of what he told us. There wasn't, as our producer Michael LaPlante said, a single wasted utterance from Dricus du Plessis in our fighter meeting. The thought that goes into what he and Mornay Visser do, I just think someone like you, the mind that you have, would be so appreciative of the commitment, the obsession. And it's not like he doesn't, chug beers. And I mean, the guy has a balance in terms of the work life, but gosh, man, they know exactly what to do when it comes to preparing for these contests. And to your point, they presented a better version, and Khamzat's going to get a better version than the one we saw Saturday night.
I truly believe that. And, there's like a little South African diaspora here in North Carolina where I'm at. And boy, these guys go nuts for Dricus du Plessis, and they just talk about how the country just adores that guy. But it's not surprising. It seems like they're built different over there, man. And Dricus du Plessis is certainly built different than most. And, he may not be the most technical fighter out there, but he's getting better every time I see him. And that's going to be a problem because physically there's very few people that can compete with him. The kind of pace and pressure and durability that he brings every single time out is insane. So yeah, I thought he looked absolutely spectacular. And, while Strickland, is a guy that also kind of brings in durability and conditioning, he just showed a completely different level. And, when he was hitting Strickland, he was having an effect almost every single time. So he's a powerful guy that is a very intelligent guy who's surrounded by other people. And again, to be the first one to do it, he's not from this hotbed, right? In Miami, Florida, or out west in California or whatever. He's from South Africa, where not a whole lot of other people have fought at a high level. And to be the first ones to do it and to get a championship in the UFC, that's just unbelievable, man. Like, I'm not sure people realize how difficult that is.
I'm glad you put it that way. It's the stuff of legends. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility that the South African schools are going to be teaching about Dricus du Plessis 100 years from now. So he did not get off to a particularly good start at all in the first fight at UFC 297 against Sean Strickland. And one of the things that came across in our fighter meeting was Strickland's jab, right, is so hard. It's more powerful than his right cross. These are DDP's words. So you can't be getting your face mangled by the jab early. And the result was that DDP didn't have nearly the damage at the end of this fight, but particularly when it came to getting off to a good start, that was a priority, and it set the tone for the entire fight.
Absolutely. I got chills. That means I heard some kind of a truth there, Johnny. So yeah, 100%. If you're going to fight Sean Strickland, man, you need to have a solution to that jab. If you don't, it's going to be a long ass night for you. Both eyes will be bruised up. And it's just hard to do everything off of that. If someone's establishing that range, it's going to be really difficult for you to do anything, whether grappling, striking, whatever. But clearly this is a team and a man in Dricus du Plessis who did his homework and just looked ready to go straight off the gate, man. It was really, really impressive.
Couldn't happen to a better human being. I absolutely love the guy. We did poll our Anik and Florian podcast listeners and viewers as to how they would handicap a fight between Khamzat Chimaev and Dricus du Plessis. 61% of respondents like Khamzat Chimaev. Short sample size, I think only a couple thousand people can flow. I'm not asking for a prediction right now, but as you forecast to the fight of all fights. And let me just add in, what's so great about champions like Bilal Muhammad, Dricus du Plessis, Merab Dvalishvili, and say what you want about Merab's reluctance at times to give Umar the opportunity, but Bilal wants to clean out all the top guys. Dricus wants to fight the guy that is the most dangerous, that has most earned the opportunity, that the fan base is behind, that the UFC is behind, right? He wants to fight Khamzat Chimaev. He knows that's next. What do you think about the fight?
Yeah, I mean that's what makes him such a savage. And that's the fight right there, man. That is a big money fight. And I think that Khamzat is going to be the better grappler overall, I would say, and he's going to be extremely explosive. So I would say that Khamzat probably has 10 minutes to finish that fight. After that, I think it's all Dricus du Plessis. So I think if Dricus, and I'm not saying that that's the way he should fight him, of just kind of surviving for 10 minutes. However, that's where Dricus needs to be most aware, most present, and bring his best defenses for those first 10 minutes, where Khamzat, fighting Khamzat, it's just like a whirlwind. You know what I mean? You just get caught in it. You don't know really where you are. Shit's everywhere. You know, your arm's over there. And then all of a sudden, you know, they're raising Khamzat's hand. So if he can survive those first 8 to 10 minutes, that's where Dricus will start to shine, because, you know, Khamzat is a tremendous hammer. But Dricus du Plessis is a tough nail. No question about that. And I think that, that's kind of how I see it initially, but that's the fight that has to happen, man.
So I'm an MMA fan at my core. And as you know, I love Khamzat Chimaev. I have no comp for him, right? He is a force unlike anything me or Dana White has ever seen in the game. I got to play an MMA fighter version of the game Guess Who on Submission Radio. And of course, I chose Khamzat Chimaev, but could not agree with you more in terms of the matchup. And it's just hard for me to wrap my head around Dricus du Plessis being overpowered to the tune of his jaw breaking by this guy, right? Like, Dricus is just such a block of a man. That it's just hard for me to wrap my head around him sort of suffering that type of fate. But I haven't seen a betting line as yet, and I can't think of a fight that that gets me out of bed more than that one. All right, more on UFC 312 coming up in about 60 seconds. But as a kid, you know, I did love cereal. I don't eat it as much as an adult just because I don't want all that sugar. I don't want Ken Flo making fun of me when I'm eating sugary cereals on the air, and there's no protein in them, right? But then I found Magic Spoon, a nostalgically delicious cereal that tastes just like my childhood favorites, but without the sugar and with a ton of protein. Magic Spoon has also turned their super popular cereal into high-protein treats that are light, crispy, and taste just like those classic crunchy cereal bars. Magic Spoon's treats, so delicious, I've eaten them before the gym, sometimes known to eat them as a high-protein snack right after a workout. Every serving of Magic Spoon high-protein cereal has crazy macros. 13 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar, and 4 grams of net carbs. They come in so many nostalgic flavors: cocoa, cinnamon, cinnamon roll, fruity, I'll eat it by the handful. It's straight protein. And the high-protein treats really are great. They're crispy, crunchy, airy, and an easy way to get 12 grams of protein when you're on the go. They come in mouth-watering flavors like marshmallow, chocolate, peanut butter, and dark chocolate. You right now can get a great deal, too. You get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/AFPod, or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. I find Magic Spoon out there. magicspoon.com/AFPod for $5 off. Magnum Zhang Weili walks into my elevator about an hour and a half after the fight with her entire team, and it might just have been the greatest moment of my life to be able to hug her. And we had an interpreter there, so I was able to tell her how great I thought she was. Yeah. Kenny, a couple years ago, Daniel Cormier was suggested that Zhang Weili was the greatest athlete in the world, and I kind of scoffed. Bro, after being in her presence all week, watching her open workout, she's a faster kicker than any man on the roster. I just am blown the fuck away by Zhang Weili. And, as far as I'm concerned, Mount Rushmore needs a fifth slot, man or woman, because Zhang Weili is truly one of the greatest mixed martial arts athletes I've ever seen.
I agree. I think that when you have that level of talent, it's you're going to be a problem no matter what sport you choose. But Zhang Weili, she could have been an Olympic gymnast, a wrestler, mixed martial art. Like, she's so talented, and I couldn't agree more. Watching her throw that wheel kick, John, I can watch that over and over and over again. It's one of the fastest kicks I've seen any human throw. Period. It's. I was waiting for her to throw it during the fight because when I could not catch it when she was throwing it on the pads. It was that freaking fast. But what's even more impressive than all of that is her ability to out-wrestle a woman who wrestled her whole life. That's the kind of athlete we're talking about here, guys. She picked up mixed martial arts, and at first she was like, oh, she's very fast and physical. And then we're like, she actually looks like a world-class striker now. And now she looks like a world-class wrestler. I mean, her ability to just thwart every single takedown attempt from Tatiana Suarez was something else, man. And then you throw in the experience and her tenacity. It was pretty to watch, man. Zhang Weili is one of my favorite fighters, and just everything she says after the fight, her personality, she's so cute, man. It's awesome.
I want to focus on this fight because there's a lot on the Suarez side as well, and we will bring Brian Petrie into our UFC 312 breakdown here in a few minutes as well. But Amanda Nunes, I think, had 4 career losses, right? And Zhang Weili, I think, started her pro career 0-1 or 1-1, right? But then didn't lose until twice losing to Thug Rose Namajunas in 2021. Once by split decision and then once via the early head kick. And it's crazy to think about Thug Rose Namajunas with 2 wins over Joanna Champion and 2 wins over Zhang Weili. But other than 2021, Zhang Weili essentially has been not only perfect, but she has been dominant every step of the way. And in this fight, to your point, doing to Tatiana Suarez, which just not a lot of people thought that she could do, maybe the most spectacular win of her career, even though she didn't get a finish, as far as Tatiana Suarez is concerned. And I had a spirited conversation with Daniel Cormier in the airport lounge about this, and I think he disagrees largely with what I'm saying. But if you're Khamzat Chimaev fighting Dricus du Plessis or Tatiana Suarez fighting Zhang Weili, and I know hindsight is 20/20, but to go balls to the wall for a takedown early, right? Because the bodies are dry or that's your style or whatever, I just feel like you have to be careful. Championship setting for Tatiana or Khamzat for the first time in the UFC, fighting a fighter that's just not going to go away at all. And you don't really know exactly what you're getting into. So yes, Suarez got the first takedown, but I don't know if it worked against her. I mean, DC disagrees, but what are your thoughts on sort of the way the early portions of that fight played out?
I think she was figured out. That was a part of it. I think Zhang Weili realized what was going on. She realized that she needed to kind of beat her to the underhook game, and keep her balance and keep her base up against the cage. And then I also think at a certain point, she broke Tatiana Suarez mentally. That's how I saw it, because at a certain point after round 3, especially when she landed that huge shot John, that Suarez just seemed very panicky after that. Like she was doing things that she typically doesn't do. She was shooting from way too far out. She was like actually like going to her back. As a wrestler, you don't really see that. And then when she was on her back, she just seemed like she was frozen in time. She wasn't wrestling on that leg to try to get to a single. She was just kind of just sitting there, and she was in a good position to maybe reverse and sweep from there, but she wasn't getting underneath the center of mass of Zhang Weili there. She wasn't trying to wrestle up to get that single leg, really. She was just kind of staying there. And now big credit to Zhang Weili, who was thwarting a lot of those attempts. But to me, it seemed like Suarez was broken mentally. And yeah, I just didn't see that sense of urgency that I expected from her. And that's the kind of championship aura that Zhang Weili brings into the cage, I think.
So RJ Clifford, who is an MMA talking head, of course, he's on SiriusXM satellite radio. He's on our UFC weigh-in shows. He was serving as my stage manager. Niner Conley was not in Australia. And I felt like RJ maybe didn't like some of the aesthetic from Tatiana Suarez during fight week leading up to the point. I felt like it was okay. Yep. Good fighter meeting. I didn't feel like she was particularly tense. I know she's a shy individual, but as you were ingesting fight week, was there any tell or visual that you didn't like, or was it just because I agree with what you're saying in terms of this fight? And I would also say, and I know I'm being long-winded, but did you see the cut on her knee? Right, that we drew attention to. So I feel like it was more like blunt force trauma. Like by the end of the fight, it looked sort of black once she stood up, and you know, she's like covering up and not wanting the cameraman to see it and asking Patchy Mix how bad it is, but yet it's not bleeding. It's like, you're like, what the fuck happened to my leg? It's almost like some car accident stuff happened to my leg, and I feel like that could have been part of the mental break.
Okay, so yeah, absolutely, man. These are all things that add up. Being in a UFC World Championship fight, I'll tell you, it can be a stressful thing, not only during the fight, but the whole fight week. Like everyone's asking you questions. It's very overwhelming. It's just different than any other fight for the most part. If you can zone that out, awesome, congratulations. But then, you know, if you throw those other things in, you know, where it's already this hill climb, and now you're dealing with this massive cut on your knee. Not to mention, John, that's the kind of area where every step you take, every move you make, it's going to hurt, and you're going to be aware of it. You know, wrestling on your knee, that's going to be tough. Like, so these are things that you don't typically expect, especially, you know, 10, 11 fights into your career. You know, Tatiana Suarez, fantastic fighter. She doesn't have 20, 30 fights under her belt. It's just different. And Zhang Weili, you know, has been in so many big critical moments, you know, over the course of her career. So anyways, yeah, it was unfortunate. I think that Suarez can get back there. But you know, she's going to have a lot of technical training, and I'm sure she's going to, you know, take away a lot of that experience, from that big fight.
Tatiana Suarez really is a much better striker than people are aware. I think this is going to be valuable experience, but my gosh, I said on these airwaves, like, I just expected some whale to come in with $1 million straight wager on Zhang Weili when she's like plus 105. Was there ever going to be anything accounted for the championship experience and just what a badass Zhang Weili is? You know, like, I literally touched down in Sydney and I find myself at an open workout and I'm dodging Zhang Weili's kick. It's so fast, you know, like 5 minutes after I get off the plane. She is absolutely incredible, a tremendous ambassador to mixed martial arts. And you can be sure the UFC, as the combat sports leader, immediately went over to that fence to see what happened as to what might have cut Tatiana Suarez. You know, I think there's maybe like some rubber tubing that is there in the States that maybe wasn't there. I don't know exactly. There's a lot of things that I hear sort of within earshot. But for Zhang Weili, Kenny.
Yep.
And I do want to, right? If we had a 4-hour podcast, I would love to have the Amanda Nunes conversation. I really would, because I'm team strawweight, you know. But as she spins it forward, there is Vina Kakarajanjidoba, of course, who fights Yan Xiaonan, I believe, in Miami in April, right? In a title eliminator of sorts. But we have a clear number one flyweight contender in Manon Fior. And this could not have been a worse night for her, because I think if you are the UFC, and I can hear Lorenzo Fertitta back in the day, you strike while the iron is hot. You don't risk losing George St. Pierre versus Anderson Silva.
Right.
You have Valentina Shevchenko and Zhang Weili fight for the women's flyweight championship, and you give Zhang Weili an opportunity to become a simultaneous 2-division champion, do you not?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that would be awesome. And I think it's interesting when they'd be fighting each other. I think, again, especially coming off of that last win from Shevchenko, she looked awesome. I mean, she put on such a clinical performance in that last one. And right now, Zhang Weili looks like she's in her prime as well. So that I would love to see that fight, man. That's a super fight that I think the fans would enjoy watching for sure.
Dude, I really believe what Valentina Shevchenko did at Sphere is sort of being underappreciated. Like, I feel like it was one of her signature wins, one of her best performances. She completely neutralized a prime Alexa Grasso, right? Just wiped her out. So, yeah, I mean, dude, but like, no one has championed Manon Fior's cause more than me, right? I mean, I called her a bad bitch on national television. I love Manon Fior. So I hate to have to sit here and say when they have their meeting tomorrow, Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby and Dana White, it's like, how do you not make Valentina Shevchenko and Zhang Weili as the co-main event for International Fight Week 2025? Send out the contracts.
Yeah.
All right, I'd like to go 3 wide if we could, because Big Gun Brian Petrie has been very patient about the schedule today. He also is an analytical mind that I wouldn't mind picking. What's up, Bri?
What's up, bub? John, you're a hero for doing this. This is hero ball, brother.
This
is hero ball, brother.
Well, if I didn't have a guy like you who is understanding, then it would make it harder for me to execute the show. So I appreciate your patience very much. I would like to start with you on Cody Steele and Rong Zhu on the prelim portion.
Sure.
I don't know if you put your whole stack on Cody Steele.
Yes.
Is that what happened? Okay. But that's not why I'm bringing it up, right?
Great
I'm
fight.
fascinated to talk to you guys about this fight. And there might be some of our audience that did not see this preliminary fight. But Cody Steele was maybe, if not one of the bigger betting favorites on the fight card, but he felt like a sure thing to a lot of people on the ground. I felt like Rong Zhu's coaches were acutely aware of the challenge on the other side. It's 30 to 27 times 3 for Rong Zhu, and I just feel like Cody Steele, an outstanding grappler with an outstanding John Wood head coach in his corner, fought the wrong fight.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
what happened? Like, when adversity struck, he didn't grapple.
No, I mean, I said this on my podcast after we taped ours last week. I said the only way he fucks us up if he gets hand happy. And these grapplers who grappled the whole life, they start knocking people out and they're only training hands, a la Josh Koscheck back in the day. They forget what they got. He took Rong Zhu down once, got reversed, and then maybe attempted kind of a half-ass one. But no one's going to believe this. But when he was walking out and Daniel and you guys were talking about how Cody was very open about submitting Rong Zhu every which way during practice, I'm like, he's fucked, right? You can't let rest on those laurels. Practice is practice. You're going to get tapped. You're training certain positions, but going in your mind, you're like, oh, I can take this guy down and submit him. But you didn't do that, dude. Yeah. Like, he got worked on the feet. His reach is very small. He was winging shots. He needs a lot of work on the feet. And just simple game plan stuff needs to work. He obviously has a heart of a lion. He's got a chin. It's been proven. But man, that was a tough one. Midway through the second round, I'm like, we've lost this. I'm already planning out where I'm going to take my money elsewhere because I've already lost that bet. I doubled down on him too. I got him at 238, $300. My units are $100, so I went 3 unis on him. Let's be transparent with everybody. And then he went down as low as 218. I'm like, he's going to go. So I got him at $50 there. A half unit. So I was all in on him for 350. And then I saw him fight night. He was like 375.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, I beat the line. Check me out. And
right.
He laid a dud. So what do you do?
He sat down 5 feet from me in the fighter meeting, and I'm thinking about your wager as he sits down. I'm like, this kid's a fucking animal,
He
know?
really
And
is,
as
he
the
is.
fighter meeting played out. No, but Ray Longo, who watches every fight, all 41 shows a year, immediately brought up sort of the chin and absorbing this type of damage early on in your UFC career. This is not going to lead to longevity. A lot of people really believe in this kid,
Yeah, you got to watch the chin nowadays. It's pretty crazy. I mean, it's nuts. Go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah, listen, obviously we're in a little game here. Brian's been kicking my ass last couple of years. As long as no one's going to get physically hurt, I'm going to do what it takes to try to get the win here. But when Brian made that pick, I was like, just shut your mouth, Kenny. Just let this happen. Because I was a little nervous, and here's why.
Yeah.
In the jiu-jitsu world, Cody Steele, he's known as elite. He definitely is. He's got a high level of skill when it comes to grappling.
Yeah.
But he has always been a showman. When there's been a path for him to go out and just like get the win, he does not take that path. He'd prefer to make it exciting. And that's what was concerning to me. And also, like, you know, even the things that he was posting about, he was talking about how, you know, he wanted to go out there and be exciting and all. And I was just like, he's going to do it again. Yeah. He's going to do it again, isn't he? He's going to do it again. But here's the thing. He could have gone out there, John, to your point, taken him down, looked fantastic and exciting on the ground and gotten the win. But instead, it was 15 minutes of punishment for your UFC debut.
Right.
And now, like, again, not saying he has a ton of time left. I don't think this is going to take anything away from him, but maybe.
Right.
But maybe.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, we're trying to be Bo Nickel or the next all-action warrior. I love Cody Steele.
Right. And also, it's the UFC, dude. You get 1, 2, 3 fights in a row and you lost, you're out of here. I don't care if you're a good-looking guy who's athletic and physical. Like, we have a ton of those guys.
Right.
Anyways.
And Rong Zhu aligning with City Kickboxing. Mike Angove has done a tremendous job with him. Eugene Behrman as well. We congratulate Rong Zhu. I'm going to toss out a few other names. I'll lead with Kenny and then go to Bry. Anybody else that you want to give some shine to, feel free. And by the way, this 6'7" heavyweight Taliesin Teixeira. I'm not trying to get too excited because the fight was quick. And Justin Tafa looked like he had 3 training sessions for the fight. No, I'm just kidding. He put in a lot of time. But my gosh. All right. So Taliesin Teixeira. I'll take anything you got on the draw between Jimmy Crute and Rodolfo Bellato. I would also throw out Gabriel Moscatino Santos would be a guy that I would like to maybe hear some analytics on. And then Alexandre Topuria, I thought, you know, looked pretty goddamn clean against Colby Thickness. I know the expectations are always going to be something he's chasing, but 30-27s across the board. So Topuria, Ken Flo, Gabriel Santos, Jimmy Crute and Rodolfo Bellato, Taliesin Teixeira. Who you giving your 60 seconds to, kid?
I'm going to give it to Teixeira, who went out there. And man, like, I think for me, I was a little nervous for them to go out and like kind of strike because Tafa, if he lands one big one, you could be in trouble. But Teixeira was so confident in there and was using the long range strikes. He came out aggressive. He didn't give any respect to Tafa, took it right to him. And that elbow from the cage was a thing of beauty, just absolutely shattered, decimated that nose of Tafa. Tafa just crumbled, just folded like a lawn chair. And Teixeira just kind of walked away like a freaking warrior giant. And it was just an amazing performance, man. He's young, he's big, he's aggressive, he's got a lot of tools. I can't wait to see him fight again, man. That was awesome.
And you would have loved our fighter meeting, right? Because he's an affable guy. He said he had 3 adrenaline dumps on the way down to the fighter meeting. The guy's like 0 to a million. But he also said, I'm not going to fight how I fought on the Contender Series. Like, I'm not getting touched. Right. You know, like, I'm going to touch him. I'm not going to get touched. And 35 seconds later, he does not get touched.
6'7".
Alexandre Topuria, Gabriel Santos, Crute, Bellato, BP. What jumps off the card for you, kid?
So Crute Bellato, I thought was a perfect scorecard. I thought that was a draw.
I think so too.
But Santos, man, golly, I got that one wrong. I am a supporter of Jack Jenkins. I think Jack Jenkins is a stud. Looked good in his first round, but physically Santos looked different. He looked huge in there. Yeah. And he got rocked. He got put down with a nasty head kick, and he just stayed composed and then broke Jack Jenkins throughout the fight. It was not easy to do. And again, coming to get, you know, he was what, 1 and 2 in the UFC, and I'm throwing shade at him for his record. But this guy fights a lot better than that, for sure. I mean, Kenny saw it. Kenny had that good, solid pick. I missed it, but he impressed me big time. And in a big 145er with a lot of ability and exciting, I'm really curious to see where he's going to go.
All right, an amazing week in Sydney at UFC 312, to be sure. It's really cool to go to a place that loves mixed martial arts as much as those people do. And I had a chance to spend a lot of time with the fans, so it was a very exciting fight week. And we congratulate all the winners. It's going to be very interesting to see how some of these careers, especially for these young Aussies, play out, like Quillan Salkild and Jonathan McCaleb, right? They're trying to – you don't know what you have. And I think sometimes when we're all watching film on these fighters, what shows up for the UFC debut is completely different than the regional film that I'm sitting in my hotel room watching. So Jonathan McCaleb is a guy, it's like, oh shit, you know, maybe your expectations aren't what they should be. So congratulations to the city and everybody else, Dricus du Plessis on down. All right. We're going to try to be expeditious with this, but I would like to break down 7 fights today, if I could, guys, as we segue to the main event challenge, UFC Fight Night, Cannoneer versus Rodriguez. Right back to it, UFC Apex, Saturday Night Live on ESPN+. So the Bonfim brothers are both on the card. So, I mean, we got to pick Gabriel Bonfim here, -230 against Chaos Williams, who comes back +190. Brian, we'll start with you, Bonfim, 3-1 in the UFC, still just 27. Did rally back from that first pro loss to Nicholas Dalby. Big number next to his name against, for my money, kind of an underrated guy in Chaos Williams. What do you have for us on this one at 170 pounds, kid?
Yeah, I'll keep some of these predictions since we're doing 7 a little light there, John, just because you're burning on both ends. I like Chaos Williams here. Listen, I just want more of him. He only fights kind of once a year. Need to see more. His grappling defense looks pretty good. I think Bonfim is going to put a lot of big pressure on him. You run into something against Chaos Williams. I mean, the guy's he legally changed his name to Chaos, right? And they accepted it. Like, yep, that makes sense. You run into something to this guy, and you're going to get put out. It's not the cleanest technique in the world, but man, he plants his feet similar to Anthony Johnson, and it thumps. Give me Chaos Williams, and I love the fact that he's +190. That is something that I'll be looking at for sure.
Did he really change his name from Kalen legally?
I think I saw. So I could be making that up.
Brian. No, I love it either way.
I think that might be real.
So he's won 4 of his last 5. Ken Flo has Chaos Williams. I really like him. Just hasn't competed all that much of late. Last fight, the knockout of Carlston Harris, May of last year. What do you think, Ken Flo? Talk to us.
Oh, Chaos with a K. Yeah, listen, I'm with you, Brian. I'm with you, Brian.
Yeah,
you know, Mahichinia, you know, he's you know, the nickname is Little Hammer, but is he the nail? Can he be the nail? I don't know. Chaos Williams, he hits you, dude. He puts you to sleep, and I think Bonfim has a lot of talent, but sometimes he can lose his focus a little bit, and if he gets into these exchanges with Williams, he could be in trouble. So, with Brian on Chaos.
Very interesting. Chaos Williams can be had +190 on DraftKings Sportsbook. Not now, but right now. All right, last of 2 prelim picks here. Strawweight Tilde, Angela Hill -125. Ketlin Souza +105. This is not even the featured prelim. You know why we're picking this fight, guys? It's a career appreciation prediction for the body of work of Angela Overkill Hill. She's fought 26 times in the UFC, Brian. So we're going to give her some shine on the Anik and Florian podcast. She is a woman. She is 40. She goes for a 3rd win in her last 4 here against Manousis Souza. What do you think? Short price? You have any action?
Love it. Yeah, I mean, 40, 30, 20. Angela Hill has looked the best she's ever looked. Incredible shape, exciting fighter. I'm a huge Angela Hill fan. I'm all over here. This is either UFC thinks a lot of Caitlin Souza, or this is like we're giving Angela Hill a bone because the resumes alone is crazy. And what I've seen on tape from Caitlin Souza is she's a comparable fighter, but I don't think she has anything that's going to really worry Angela Hill here. Angela Hill is nasty in the clinch. She's cleaned up her grappling. I hope she gets a big time finish because she's been so close to getting those. She wobbles girls. She gets girls. Her cardio or motors there. So I want to finish by Angela Hill, but low price, -125. Add it to my card. I love it.
Angela Hill is 12-14 in the UFC. That doesn't do her performances justice. She's coming off a loss to Baby Shark Tabitha Ricci. Souza's won 2 straight since she was knee barred by Karini Silva in her 2023 UFC debut. And last win for her, pretty much as good as it gets, a submission of Yasmin Howard at Sphere last September. Ken Flo. Strawweight's on the prelims. Who do you love?
Yeah, I know it was the submission, but really it was set up by that huge left hook, I believe it was. Just a nasty shot. Very, very rare to see a little woman with that kind of power. My goodness. I'm a big Angela Hill fan as well. She does so many things well. And, you know, for a woman with a 17-14 record, she has to be the best mixed martial arts fighter on the planet with a 17-14 record. Right. She does a lot of things well. She's been extremely durable throughout her career, shown big-time improvements. Yeah, this one's a tough one. I think Hill, there's no question that Hill can pull this one off. I'm going to lean towards Souza, though, here. I think maybe she squeezes out a decision, but would love to see Angela Hill get it done here.
All right, on a Monday, we will pick 5 of the 6 main card fights for UFC Fight Night. Cannoneer versus Rodriguez at middleweight. Rodolfo Vieira, -225. Andre Petrosky, +185. Vieira, 35. He has won all 5 of his UFC fights by submission. That includes his last win over Armen Petrosyan by arm triangle. That was a year ago today, Bryce, so it's been a while. And now the multi-time BJJ and ADCC champion returns against Philadelphia's Andre Petrosky. What do you have for us on the 85ers, kid?
Yeah, so grappler versus grappler, which means they're going to strike, right? The only problem with that is Petroski's landed 6 takedowns in his last 2 fights. He's had 1 fight in the UFC where he landed 8. This guy, no matter what, likes to take it to the ground. However, I think he's a little soft on the feet, right? I mean, he went against a fellow grappler, Jacob Malkoun, and just got worked and kind of got clipped by a guy who's not fancy striker. Now, I'm not saying Rodolfo Vieira is. However, Vieira is a dog in there. He landed 86 strikes against Chris Curtis when he couldn't land a takedown, and he's really cleaned up his cardio. He's a big, strong guy. I'm very curious to hear how Kenny breaks this down because he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's the Jiu-Jitsu black belt, triple black belt, whatever he is. Vieira, obviously on top. Most Jiu-Jitsu practitioners want to be on top. I'm curious at how he is off his back because Petroski, I think, is the bigger, maybe slightly bigger, better wrestler. So there might be a chance for Vieira to be working off his back. So I'm really curious how that's going to play here because some guys, you can be a 10th degree black belt, you get put on your back. It's not really their bread and butter. But I think Vieira here, I like him here. I like the number. I thought we were going to get him a little lower, if I'm being honest with you, but Vegas is smart nowadays. So give me Vieira.
Yeah, that price seemingly continues to swell. That's my favorite surname to hear BP pronounce. On the other side, you have Andre Petroski, likely a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Congratulations to the Birds. His last 4 wins, Kenny, have all been by decision after he began his UFC career with 3 straight finishes. So seems like Vieira may be the more prolific finisher in this equation. What do you have for us on the middleweights?
Yeah, Brian, I'm the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt over here, former professional mixed martial arts fighter. I'm the analyst guy, okay? For this fight, I have no idea what's going to happen.
Okay.
Rodolfo Vieira, I love the improvements he's made. He looked so much better on the feet, looks way more comfortable. He doesn't seem gun shy, not afraid of getting hit or getting hurt now. So I like that as far as his changes. And as John mentioned, I like the fact that he really is bringing his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu submission game to the table now and being a legitimate threat. How he approaches this Petroski fight is going to be interesting because Petroski is most likely going to try to avoid the ground and look for some huge hammers on the feet and try to rock Vieira. Now, Petroski doesn't stay so busy sometimes, and Vieira might be able to steal some rounds with his striking a little bit, but his defense is not something I'm terribly confident in. So, and if they go to the ground, I could see Petroski potentially nullifying that game from Vieira. So how Vieira approaches the ground game, how he approaches the striking, I'm not exactly sure. He's going to have to come in with a very smart game plan. However, I haven't been on the Vieira train completely,
right.
But I'm getting back on. I like the fact that he's showing improvements. I expect those improvements to continue. I like Rodolfo Vieira here. Let's go.
Nice. Well, and if you were trying to be political on the Anik and Florian podcast over the years, you would have picked Vieira repeatedly, right? And by the way, you did a podcast recently, and somebody said to you, the man's name's escaping me, that I never called you K-Swiss, for the record, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know that. You knew in your heart. I never called you K-Swiss. Anyway, inside joke. Fucking deal with it. Kieran Portley, you know what we're talking about. All right, next up, lightweight. 29-year-old Ismael Bonfim out of Brasilia, Brazil. I think public perception really differs as to just how high his ceiling is. He's the -175 favorite here against Black Wolf. 30-year-old Nazim Sadikov, of course, Longo's guy, comes back here +145. Bri, we'll start with you as usual. Bonfim limited to just 1 appearance last year. It was a win over Vince from Hell Pichel in Brazil, UFC 301, and that was 10 months after he got submitted by Benoit Saint-Denis. Your thoughts on Bonfim here against Nazim Sadikov?
I feel like Michael Scott over here with those little inside jokes. I just smiled through it. Like, what the hell are these guys talking? I just had to smile through it.
You deserve to know. There was a time where one of our bosses joked at ESPN that Kenny was K-Swiss, as in K-Switzerland.
Oh.
As in he would sit on the fence. But he was fighting all these guys in the lightweight division. Neutral. Neutral because he didn't feel like giving picks on national television on ESPN when he was fighting all these guys or might be fighting these guys. So, he didn't want to pick a Frankie Edgar fight, I think, because he was probably going to fight Frankie, which never happened. So that's the joke. That's all.
And you never called him that. You're not on the record calling him K-Swiss.
I mean, I'm the president of the team.
Sure.
No, I don't take shots at Kenny. No.
I love it. But I love this fight as well because, both Bonfim's brothers are fighting, but I really like Nas, right? And I know it's a Ray Longo guy, and anybody we pick Ray Longo, it's like, get off your knees, blah, blah, blah. I really like Nas, and I know he doesn't have like the greatest resume currently in the UFC. I mean, he hasn't lost, but his performances have been like, you know, he almost lost the Evan Elder fight, but then the cut, and then he has a draw, and we haven't seen him a little bit. But this is a wide body, thick dude who has good takedown defense, good cardio, and is good on the ground. His striking's there. I just feel like sometimes he's a little too patient, right? And I want him to kind of flip that kill switch on just a little bit. And hopefully, I mean, Ray's one of the greatest of all time. He's working with Nas on that as finding the kill switch here, because I think there's going to be openings on Bonfim, who is all action. He's not really defensive minded. He wants to get you out of there. If not, kill or be killed, kamikaze. So I like Nas at plus 145 here as well. This could be like a really kind of sneaky like parlay piece out there for plus 145 if you really want to throw some plus money in a parlay and really juice that fucking thing. I'm a straight rager man myself, but for the parlay lovers out there, I like Nas here. I think Nas is gonna win this by decision, maybe even a finish in like second or third round if Bonfim slows down. But give me Nas.
Feels so weird to go from the pageantry of Kudos Bank Arena in Sydney to the UFC Apex and have it be the same sport, right? As I think about these guys, how talented they are competing at the Apex, right? Sadikov, Ken Flo, Azerbaijan, 9-1-1 as a pro, has yet to lose in the octagon, his biggest test against Bonfim. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, Brian, I'm with you on this one. I think Bonfim has a lot of firepower, but so does Sadikov. And I think Nas is better defensively as well. That's my concern for Bonfim, is he'll finish a combination and his hands will kind of drop a little bit. And Nas will not forgive. He will go right back at you. And if Bonfim is getting lazy like that, and this isn't something that he does every once in a while, it's something he does consistently. So that's a concern for me. I think this is a nice spot here for Nas as the underdog. So I'm with you.
All right, 3 picks to go. Thanks to everybody joining us live here today on the Anik and Florian podcast on YouTube. Featured bout of middleweight features Edmund Shabazian minus 340, taking on Dylan Budka plus 270. Shabazian still only 27, 11 UFC fights already. Certainly, I don't have to tell you guys he's been plagued by some inconsistency, really dating to that 2020 stoppage loss to Derek Brunson. Last fight, a submission loss to Gerald Meerschaert. That was last August. Ken Flo, we'll have you lead us here. Your thoughts on Shabazian, the near 3.5 to 1 favorite against Dylan Budka.
Yes, sir. Yeah, with Shabazian, you're not quite sure what you're going to get, especially when he's going against another guy who has that grappling background. Now, with Budka, it seems like he kind of is content to, kind of strike from the outside and then look for a takedown here and there. But I don't know. I think that really could be a problem for him if he decides to take that approach. I think he needs to go heavy with the grappling, try to put Shabazian on his back. But Shabazian early is very, very dangerous. And I think he has, improved a lot when it comes to his grappling in some ways. He does fade still late in fights, but give me Shabazian here.
All right, Dylan Budka on the other side, born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, attended Notre Dame College in Ohio for wrestling. He was born in the year 2000, so 25 years of age, 0-2 in the UFC. Your thoughts on him here, Bri, against Edmund Shabazian?
Sometimes a capper's got to take all the analytics and throw it to the side. This is a number play, boys. I mean, Dylan Budka plus 270 is juicy. Shabazian should win this. He's the more talented guy for sure. But what he's done in the octagon is a good first round, and he fades. He had a great first round against Meerschaert where he almost finished him, and then he faded. That's kind of the MO on Shabazian. Wouldn't be surprised if Shabazian just steamrolls him, but this is a number play. I'm taking Dylan Budka. Dylan Budka strikes me as a guy who is a fucking animal in the gym, right? All the guys in our gym like, look at this guy. And then when he gets in the cage, something doesn't click. That happens sometimes. It just doesn't click. Hopefully it clicks and we can cash this number here at plus 270. I like it. I'm going Budka. Nicely done.
All right, co-main event. We'll go right back to you, Bri. Perhaps a changing of the guard fight at featherweight here. Yusuf Zalal, a whopping minus 395 betting favorite against the perennially ranked contender Calvin Kattar. He can be had plus 310. Zalal out of Casablanca, Morocco, 28 years of age, looked like a completely different beast, right?
Yeah.
During this second UFC stint, a perfect 3-0 in 2024 submissions of Billy Q, Jarno Aarons, and Jack Shore. Odds makers paying attention, Bri. The question is, are you?
Yeah. America, look in my eyes right now. Okay? 395 doesn't scare me a fucking bit. I love Zalal here. This guy, most improved fighter. I mean, seriously, like Ilia Topuria debuted against this guy in the UFC and struggled, right? The only fight he's ever struggled in the UFC. I know that was a while ago, but Zalal was young, a little immature. People in the camp were like, this guy needs to get it going. He lost 3 in a row, had a draw, got kicked out of the UFC. What does he do? Oh, I'm just going to go finish everybody, get back and start finishing dudes in the UFC. I love this kid here in this spot, 395. Doesn't scare me a lick. Calvin Kattar, I think, is a very good boxer. I think the knee injury a couple years ago, about 2 years ago now, is still, it's hard to come back from that, but he's not a big kicker. I think Zalal can grapple, right? I think he can strike. I think his cardio is phenomenal. I think his fight IQ's there. I think he's explosive. I am late to the excuse me, I'm not going to say his first name, I'm going to butcher it. I'm late to the Zalal train, so if you've been riding that train forever, please make room for me because I'm fucking hopping on, okay? I love this guy. This is like my lock for the week. I know it's almost 400, and I'm going to give it out these cheesy 400 locks, but man, I do love this kid a lot. So after the Cody Steele last week, maybe you should Fabian take Kattar, but I feel it, baby. Feel it in the balls. Let's go. Zalal.
All right, Yusuf Zalal with conviction for Brian. Maybe the proposition market will be something that you wet your beak with. Pretty significant fall from grace for Calvin Kattar at one point. Thought maybe he might get into that conversation with Kenny Florian and Rob Font as the greatest fighters out of the state of Massachusetts, but he's essentially 500 now, Kenny, despite the amazing strength of schedule after starting 4-1 in the UFC, 7-6, and just 1 win since that fateful loss to Max Holloway in 2021. Could be an interesting clash of styles, Ken Flo. How do you see it playing out between Zalal and Calvin Kattar?
Well, Calvin Kattar is such a good and tough kid, man. And this is a really tough fight for him. Zalal he's kind of the full package, man. He's a really smart fighter. He can do it all. He's athletic. He's fast. He's a potent finisher as well. And Calvin Kattar's best shot is to try to make this a battle of durability. He needs to kind of make it a nasty fight. And the problem with that is that Calvin Kattar has had a lot of those nasty fights and perhaps doesn't have that same kind of durability that he had when he came into the UFC. Still has the same level of toughness. But Zalal is just really, really technical everywhere. I would love to see Kattar kind of turn back the clock. But Zalal's a problem, man. He's not only a problem for Kattar, he's a problem, I think, for pretty much everyone in that division. I think he's that good and that talented. So I'm going to go with Zalal here.
Yusuf Zalal going for a 7th straight win overall this weekend. All right, we will get the main event predictions in 60 seconds. But it's not just the UFC you can bet on DraftKings Sportsbook. I mean, who's scoring big in the NBA this season? You are, with all the new ways to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From monster slams to dishing the rock to eating the glass, get behind your favorite players and the prop bets you can make on DraftKings, the home of NBA player props. And here's something special. As always, for first-timers, new DraftKings customers, bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Take it to the rack with DraftKings Sportsbook, where every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code AFPOD. That's code AFPOD for new customers. Get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. All right, main event.
Live. He read that live off of a flight from Sydney without hiccups. What a beast.
Oh, Ken Flo, I appreciate the acknowledgement. You know, sometimes when we're doing a pay-per-view and you start to flub a few things early on, right? On UFC Fight Pass or whatever, it's like, man, I can't get out of my own way. So, not sure I've read that DraftKings spot any more cleanly than I did right there. Thanks for bringing attention to it. All right. Main event, Gregory Rodrigues, budding middleweight contender, minus 205, taking on the killer gorilla Jared Cannonier, who comes back at plus 170. A little backdrop for you guys. RoboCop right now, of course, north of 2-1. I think he deserves the distinction, maybe closer to his fighting prime than Cannonier, who will be 41 next month. Cannonier, Bry, has asked a lot of himself in this UFC career. 18 UFC fights spanning 3 divisions. He has lost 2 in a row. Your thoughts on what Cannonier might be able to bring to the table here as the underdog against the streaking Gregory Hobocop Rodriguez.
I'm not, I know this was used to be tied to like political things. I'm not a political guy, but can I see Gregory Rodriguez's birth certificate? Because he's 6 years younger than me.
Yeah.
No knock on Gregory Rodriguez, but man, and I've never picked the guy.
Birth certificate front, Bryce.
Zhang
Weili. You might have heard me reference it on the broadcast, but I said you're 35 now in the fighter meeting, and she interrupted with interpretation to tell me she was 34.
Yeah.
So I bring that to the attention of Tom Gerbasi, our researcher, and he has a picture of her passport, but Zhang Weili insists that her passport is wrong. So UFC made a decision to go with the passport, and verbally I made a decision to go in another direction.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, some people on the underground, the MMA underground, MMA.tv, the legendary, they used to, the last time I spawned there, they were convinced Francis Ngannou was really 47. They're like, there's no way he's that. Anyway, I digress. Love this fight. I don't love it for Cannonier. I think he's taken a couple beatings pretty quick for being a guy over 40. He did not look good his last time out. He got hurt pretty much. He almost finished. Hard for days. The guy's a stud, but then he got put out by Imavov. Excuse me, John. And RoboCop, this fucking guy I never pick him, right? My worst bet on this show, I mean, you can say the Cody Steele, whatever. Worst bet on the show was Brad Tavares over RoboCop by knockout. No knock on Brad Tavares. Brad Tavares is a phenomenal fighter, but that's the one where people still might chirp me a little bit because I've never been on the RoboCop train. It's like when a running back fumbles once and you have no stats to back it up, but every time he touches the ball, you're like, he's gonna fumble. Yeah. Greg Rodriguez got knocked out by Jordan Williams, and I just can't get that out of my fucking head. It's gone though, right? We used some sage. We got that out of my head. I like Greg Rodriguez here. I just think in close, his boxing's phenomenal. His combinations are really good. I think both guys have a little bit of a chin issue, if I'm being honest. And I think if Greg Rodriguez gets in trouble, he has the better grappling, the younger, more fresher fighter as well. I like RoboCop here. This is a long time coming because he isn't a really exciting fighter, and he's getting a good main event spot here, and I'm excited about it. And I think he's gonna do good. 205 doesn't scare me, and I'll put him in a parlay. Love it. Give me RoboCop.
Nicely done, Bri. Rodriguez, a shiny 7-2 in the UFC. Ken Flo, he's won 3 in a row to actualize this first UFC main event. Last win came against Christian Leroy Duncan, UFC 304. And on the other side, 6 straight main event and/or 5-rounder for Jared Cannonier. He's got a lot of experience at the Apex. Ken Flo, your thoughts on the main event?
I think Brian Petrie summarized everything that I was thinking and that I was going to say pretty much. So I don't have a whole lot to add, but that's kind of the way I see it. And that's the way I saw Gregory Rodriguez before, was like, I wasn't on that train. I wasn't sure, is this guy legit? Is he not? And yeah, sometimes his chin can be questionable, but right now, Cannonier, where he's at this point of his career, he can be rocked too. And I see Rodriguez just being kind of the fresher guy. I think physically a little bit more capable as well. And like Brian said, I think he's going to be way more capable if this fight does hit the ground. Not only with his positioning, but his ability to utilize ground and pound and submissions. And that's where he really has the advantage here against Cannonier. And yeah, give me Hobocop, man. Hobocop. Hobocop.
Oh, so
Hobocop.
good.
He's going to win, man.
That's good.
Very good main event, man.
I love it so much.
As I've said, if Kenny did that for an hour, he would have a lot of downloads from me and my twin brother. All right, our final act, you know what it is. Place your bets, presented by JonAnik.com and KennyFlorian.com, where you can support the show with our exclusive Anik and Florian podcast merchandise and One More Sleep apparel. Promo code One More Sleep for 15% off your order. We will update the standings next week after the predictions for UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Rodriguez. You get $1,000 for the fight nights, $3,000 for the pay-per-views, $1,000. Brian Petrie, we will take your wagers at any time.
Hang on a second. I'm just trying to find a ladder to buy to get me out of this fucking hole I'm in. Golly.
We should just wipe it clean. It's been a little bit of an uneven start to the
right.
year. But
listen,
we'll take your picks, though, anytime.
And I don't want to make excuses. I'm not an excuse guy, but can we get Kenny Florian's mustache tested for steroids? I mean, me going against this guy in a picks competition with that thing going on, this is crazy. All right, so last week I loaded up on one guy, put my eggs in one basket. Bad me. Let's go 500 on my guy Zalal. 500 on Zalal.
Okay.
Get a couple bucks out of that. Give me 200 on Angela Hill. I believe in her. I love her. Give me another 200 on that dog, Chaos Williams.
Caleb.
And then just for shits and gigs, give me $100 on RoboCop by KO. I'll get you that line by the end of the week, Johnny.
I like that.
Absolutely love it. Yeah, that RoboCop by knockout proposition will probably be tasty for some and available on DraftKings Sportsbook later in the week. All right, Kenny Florian, who did not put 3,000 large on Cody Steele last week. Who do you have this week, Ken Flo, for $1,000?
Oh man, last year I had a pretty good lead, and then it deteriorated very quickly. All right, so I'm gonna put $100 on Chaos Williams.
Okay,
bring that chaos. I'm putting not 500 on Zalal. I'm putting 600 on Zalal because I'm a one-upper. That's what I had written down here. Okay,
I love it.
600 on Zalal, and then $300 on a hobby copy, man.
All right, 3 straight wagers for Ken Flo, Chaos Williams, Yusuf Zalal, and Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez. Our chief handicapper is Brian Petrie. Be sure to check out his MMA Takes podcast. And on X, he is at Brian Petrie MMA. He's also on Instagram as well. Much love, brother. Appreciate your time as always. And we're going to be busy here for several weeks in a row. We look forward to talking to you next Monday, good sir.
I can't wait for it, boys. Good seeing you in prime time, Johnny. Get some sleep, bud. You need it. Love you guys.
You're the man. Thank you, buddy. I kind of like the prime time feel, but we try to get the content out to the masses as soon as humanly possible. Thanks to Dominick Cruz for joining us off the top of the show. I lied about all the nice things I was going to say to him actually at the end of the show, but we will have time, I think, over the course of the next couple weeks to maybe have him back and put some shine on some of the things he did. Thanks to Ray Longo. Thanks to Brian Petrie, our fine executive producer is Cody Merrow. And thanks to everybody indulging us live. Thanks to all the good folks on the ground in Australia. And thanks to Ken Flo for just bringing up the whole room with that unbelievable aesthetic today. We're right back in your lives next Monday live here on the DraftKings Network and the DraftKings YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out Remember the Show with Bilal Muhammad and Jason Anik over on the Anik and Florian Podcast YouTube channel. Until next time, we love you. Tell your moms about the show. Thanks for watching. Yo later.
I love this shit.